Good evening, I'm Pat Morris. This is the Finance and Warrant Advisory Committee. Having a quorum present, we'll reopen the meeting, which is a continuation from the September 18th meeting. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So this is a continuation, as I said, of our meeting of September 18. We've had a few modifications to some of the articles, and the financials are now available. Apparently, we've removed one item from the warrant, and we've added one item to the warrant, right? Number 24?
We've actually removed two.
Two?
I can go through them real.
Okay, well, all right, so what I was gonna say is Jim Smith, our town manager, Tim Harrison, town accountant, and Jen Hager, who's town planning director, are gonna walk us through quickly things that we didn't talk about and what changes we've made. Fair enough?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Sure. The article. All right, you all set?
Okay.
Article number 1 is the same that I presented at the last meeting. No changes to that article. Any questions on that article? Article number 2 is appropriation of essentially replacing free cash with new growth. So the capital plan last year was funded in part with free cash. Because of the extra new growth we received this year, we want to replace that, add that to the capital plan, and take out the free cash. So, any questions on that? Article number 3 is to transfer money into the OPEB account. The Board of Selectmen policy is 10% of free cash to go towards OPEB. It's also any revenue from the cell tower at Town Farm Road. Between those two articles, it's roughly $235,000 that we're looking to. The final number will be on the motion, but it's in that vicinity of $235,000.
So it's a range.
Yeah, it's probably a little higher than that. Yeah. So, the numbers change by the moment, so, it's a healthy number, we're dealing with.
Okay.
Bad bills, there is one bad bill, and it's regarding the transfer station. Back in March, the bills for Pellegrino Trucking, which does our hauling of all our materials to, what is that site in Worcester that burns?
Wheelabrator?
Wheelabrator. And also down to Blackstone for our recyclables. But this bill somehow got lost. It's for the March hauling bills in the amount of $1,125. We had, there's really no excuse for this because the clerk that we had entering these bills was still on staff at that point in time, so I have no explanation as to why that was a bad bill, why we missed that.
We may not even received it, who knows?
Yeah, got lost in the mail.
Yeah.
When all else fails.
Yeah, blame the post office.
That's my fault, man.
So anyway, so that's a request. Article number,
Was that the only bill?
Yes.
yes, that's the only bad bill, yes. Article number 5 is for the low-level outlet at Stevens Pond. It is leaking, and this is just for the study to identify what the issue is. And then when we define that issue, if it's something we can deal with within our operating budget, we will. If it's something that needs to go to the May capital plan, we will look to do that as well. Article number 6, I think we pulled. That was the Gilmore Drive LED lights. National Grid charged us $72,000. The town appropriated 75 at town meeting. Maybe it was the 2018, 19 town meeting, 2 years ago. They have done their final engineering and they were looking for another $60,000. I thought that was too much. They're asking now basically $132,000 for 4 streetlights. That just seems exorbitant. So I told them, we're pulling this article, we're not going forward with it, which means I need to take a step back and negotiate with the parties and the Gilmore Drive Business Association and just figure out where we go from here. Article number 6 is Woodbury Pond. This was originally $50,000. We are not restoring the pond. We are looking to appropriate roughly $25,000. That's for the work that's been done by Weston and Sampson and what the permitting required by the state of Massachusetts Office of Dam Safety. So this does not replace the dam. This gets us up to date with our permitting that is behind and gets funding for monies we've already spent with Weston and Sampson. I've had a meeting with Galaxy Development. I offered them the dam as requested by the committee. They didn't take me up on that. What they're looking for is development for that condo project further down in their development that abuts Woodbury Pond. So right now, it's a cold water fishery, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we need to get up to date with our permitting as required by the state. The dam is breached. There was no downstream impact. It is what it is at this point. There's some question of whether we restore that dam or not. There are people on one side to restore it, to make it a warm water pond, or leave it as a cold water fishery. There's people on both sides of that situation. But right now, we're gonna leave it as it is. If there's additional information prior to Maytown meeting, we could put the money at Maytown meeting to reconstruct that dam. Galaxy Development has offered to buy the dam structure. That's $5,000. So engineering that structure is $12,500. So there's a lot of additional cost yet to come, and we still have yet to evaluate whether we want to restore a warm water pond. So essentially, we're looking for $25,000 to get up to date with our permitting with the state of Massachusetts.
So Jim,
Yeah.
In explaining this at the town meeting, is it to say, I understand it's $25,000 to pay the bills for engineering and permits for the state. Is this to maintain a cold water fishery?
To
seems to
maintain
be
it in
missing
its
something.
existing condition at this moment.
To maintain existing condition.
Yes.
Okay.
The remainder beyond the pond, the river that kind of runs back towards the public water supply wellheads, goes under Route 146 and heads towards the villas and the golf course. That section is all technically cold water fishery. Not currently supporting like a trout population, but capable of supporting a trout population because of the temperature of the water. The pond was just recently breached, so it's not at that temperature in that condition yet. But if you leave it over time, it will revert likely to its prior status, which was part of that cold water fishery stream system. Right now, it's not. But the pond, when it was there, was ponding, it was a higher temperature. It didn't really support that potential trout population, which doesn't exist, by the way, in the rest of the river.
Okay.
So,
I was just looking, so
Yeah, he's
I thought there was the subject was missing here on the wording. That was my
Gotcha.
intent. Thank you.
okay.
Article number 7 is to fund the additional work needed for the sewer project. Again, It was previously a two-phase project, bringing phase one up to the center of town. Second phase was bringing sewer down to the school department. We've decided, the Board of Selectmen, to make it a one-phase project, focusing from the villas all the way down to the school department. And this is for the additional costs for engineering, as well as from McClure, engineers as well, to dig a well, which we have to identify whether there's an available source of water to replace the gray water system and the wastewater treatment plant.
And this comes from retained earnings,
It
correct?
does.
Okay,
It actually
Well,
comes out from connection fees.
Which is different.
thank you.
And there's approximately $1 million.
$1 million in that account, right?
Yeah, just under.
Just under $1 million. That's all I have, Jen.
What was the dollar amount for Article 5?
$25,000.
Same as Article 6? Both are 25?
No, I'm sorry. Article 5 is 16.5.
Good, thank you.
Want to scoot left?
We're good there, come sit here.
Jim, isn't there one more in here about money for the park?
Get the last article.
That's the
Last
very
article.
last one.
That's the very last one?
Wanna do
Is-
wanna do that one first?
Okay.
Sure, which one?
Unity
23?
Park. That one's mine too. That's why it's at the end. Unity Park, we received notice last Thursday. I
Oh,
attended
hold on, so that's Article 23?
The very last
which
one.
is it, everybody? Thank you.
I think it's 23.
It is.
Yes?
Awesome. All right, so Article 23, I attended a ceremony last Thursday. The town received a $100,000 grant to go towards, it's a matching grant to go towards the restoration of Unity Park, renovation of Unity Park in Wilkinsonville. So we have a group, Sutton Restoration, or Sutton Recreational Resources. They're a citizens group based out of Wilkinsonville. They are working right now to gain donations to match some existing capital funding and potentially some future capital funding next year to match these funds to do a full renovation of Unity Park in Wilkinsonville.
So we got a $100,000 grant.
We have a $100,000 grant, so the way
So the
these,
matching would bring the total to 200,000.
right, and the project is actually,
Not 230,000.
no, it's 200, yes. So we already have funds in the account,
Oh,
in the
okay.
capital funds in the account, and we'll appropriate some more if we need them in the capital fund next year, but their fundraising efforts are already looking really good in terms of being able to meet the 230. The deal is, we don't sign on the dotted line on the grant unless we know all the funds are there from fundraising and or anticipated capital in the upcoming year. This article is identical to the Marion's Camp grant, which you'll remember different. One was Land Water Conservation Fund, this is Park, but they're exactly the same in operation in that the town meeting has to vote two things: to restrict the site to recreational use moving forward and to appropriate the full amount, even though we know already more than half of that is gonna come from the grant, and the rest is supposed to come from donations, with the balance coming from capital fund, either existing capital fund monies or bridging the gap in May. No construction will begin on this project until at least July 1, so we'll know exactly where we stand going into next year's May town meeting, and the town's residents can make a decision, yay or nay, whether, say, the gap's 70,000, whether they wanna put that into this park to match the 100,000 and what's been raised, or whether it's 10,000. And that's awesome, because there's a $100,000
You're
grant.
gonna do a lot of building, because the only thing there now is a couple of sets of swings,
Swings
a
and,
sandbox with a bunch of
Not even
unregistered
sandbox.
trucks, not in Sutton.
not even a box, actually, it's kind of a
pile
pit.
of sand.
Yeah,
So are you gonna put buildings on it?
no. The park is meant to be kind of a state-of-the-art ADA compatible. So basically, if you've been to Unity Park in Wilkes, you know that you have to go through a gate.
Gate, go up
Which
the
can
hill.
be treacherous if your vehicle's a little too wide. And you go up gradient, not a super hill, but up gradient, and there's only, 3 or 4 parking spaces really functionally. So we already have a conceptual design by Graves Engineering for more than 10 spaces, including some handicap spaces. It will only take $7,800 that can be expended before July 1 to do the engineering necessary to put out a bid on that work before July 1. And then, so you'll have handicapped accessible parking. You'll have handicap accessible access from the existing sidewalk to the playground surface. And then the playground would be basically state-of-the-art. So you'd have the playground surfacing that you see in a lot of modern playgrounds. You'd have a variety of equipment ranging from toddler through 12 years old. And 2 or 3 components of that will be specifically designed and have access for ADA populations to be used by ADA individuals and or non-restricted individuals. So it's a really awesome, totally up-to-date, very well surfaced, more easily maintainable and code compliant park system. So, and Sutton Recreational Resources, again, the nonprofit group based out of Wilkes, they're brand new. Lots of residents of Wilkes basically formed this organization, have really pounded the pavement, starting to get funding, and have partnered with us on this grant application.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Please.
So I just wanna make sure it's all clear. So the 230 includes the 100 or the
It
100?
includes the 100.
So,
It's 130.
so is the article gonna, what's the motion gonna read?
The
130, 115, or
No,
230?
it has to read this way. We have to, because it's a reimbursable grant. So just like Goddard Lodge and every other reimbursable grant we've done in the 20 years I've been here, the town has to commit to the full amount, but we're knowing, and it says in the wording, that a portion of that funding can come from wherever. And in this case, it's through the grant application that usually, like Goddard Lodge, when we voted that article for Goddard Lodge, almost $500,000, we didn't even know we had the grant. This time we know we have 100,000 of it locked down. So you have to commit up front to the full funding, and then you commit in the wording that to apply for a grant, to receive gifts from donations or whatever, over the span of the
So free
grant.
cash?
So how
Yeah.
much money does the group actually have to raise? Is it the 130? Is that what we're saying?
The town has about, I think it's 12,000, something like that, sitting there right now, and we have 100,000 from the grant. So take 230 minus 112, you're in the $120,000 range. That's what they're gonna aim for.
And they think they can raise all
I,
that in a
they
year?
think that they're pretty, they don't even have a year. They have basically until next town meeting period, so until, April, pretty much of next year. And, they're very confident, actually, that they'll raise the majority of that, if not all of that. And then I've already spoken to Jim about, the town's only putting $12,000 towards a $231,000 project right now. So if we need to ask for another $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for complete rehab of this playground in a much-needed neighborhood where your closest playground that's available during the day is over 3 miles away, we don't think that's too much to ask. But I'll have to say, the Recreational Resources Committee is, or nonprofit at this point, is really confident. They have great connections and contacts and conversations with local banks, with local businesses that they've been reaching out to, not to mention the little dime by dime kind of local donations. They did an event this.
So I'm not sure how much we're gonna raise from them, to answer your question.
Yeah.
I am trying to encourage them and
They are.
support them and let them know I will make up the difference through the capital plan.
Right.
But I'm letting them loose and having them go door to door and
Right.
their business contacts. So hopefully they're successful, and we wanna be supportive of that.
But we're already taking care of any shortfall right here in this article. We don't
Yeah.
have to go to the capital plan. We're appropriating
right,
230, and we may only spend, if they're short 20, we've got 20 out of the 230, and the rest of it closes back to free cash a year from now.
Okay.
So,
Good point.
Yep.
okay, all right, yeah, that's where I was confused, I didn't, okay, thank you. Got
Have
it.
you done any initial kind of schematic costs?
Oh, we had to. Yeah, we had to for the grant application. We did not one, we did not two, we did three.
Yeah,
With
well,
three
'cause-
different vendors with, and really roughed out the costs, because it can be really expensive.
Well,
So,
that's my point.
absolutely,
30
so,
grand could just go to the parking.
yeah, we did, the parking is estimated at 28,000, so awesome guess. And, she knows her numbers. And yeah, the balance is in the equipment and the surfacing. So we're very lucky that this is a pretty level site, so we're not doing a lot of grading work or anything like that.
Jen, I'd like to clarify one thing, is the phrase you used when you started, that the $100,000 was matching. And then later on, you said that it's not matching, so what is it? So
You
they-
have to match every penny of that
So
100,000.
By you mean the town, the town in.
The town-
Not, you've got three groups here. You've got $100,000 from the state.
Yep.
You've got the town that says we'll make up the delta, whatever's missing that you don't raise. So
Yep.
that's three groups.
Yep.
So do you have, so,
The majority of so you have 100,000 from the state, you have to match every penny of that with some other funding.
so
The
it could come,
majority
so
of,
the town could match $100,000?
if they wanted to.
Okay.
But
that-
the
I just-
discussion Jim has had was the majority's gonna
No,
come,
I understand all the
Okay,
others. I
good.
just, I thought you were inferring that this,
Mm-hmm.
this park commission group here had to raise $100,000 or.
they're trying to.
That's their goal.
That is their
No, that's
goal.
their goal, but if they don't, they fall short, then.
We pick up
Then
the
we
rest.
bridge the gap.
Okay.
But we've already had a conversation that if
Okay,
that
so-
number
so-
is huge,
So
we're not
part
gonna
B
do
of my question is that since we vote on it now, so assuming that this passes, we vote on it again, based on, you'd have to take money from free cash?
This appropriation will be from free cash.
Okay, so this is it. This is a done deal if they raise nothing. It's 130 from the town.
This is the language required by the
I understand
park
that.
grant,
I
so.
understand that. I'm just trying to get the
Yes,
financial
so if they
impact.
don't raise another penny, then the town picks up the rest of the cost.
Okay, that's, okay.
There is a but on that. But we've already told them that we can't afford to do that.
No, but that's,
Well, no.
Pat's question.
No, that was
Yeah.
not my question, is
Okay.
that I'm looking at the liability to the
Oh,
town.
absolutely.
So
Maximum
the
liability is
Maximum liability could
130.
be 130,000 from free cash to the town to match this. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Other questions from the board?
I'm sorry, I jumped in and jumped ahead of everything.
No, that's okay. That's all right.
Jeez.
Jeez, it's the first time he's done it.
Back to Article 8.
So we're back to Article 8.
This is conservation.
It's pretty much this.
Come on up, Andy, or,
Sure, I think
I mean, you can,
Yeah, so nothing's really changed on this one since the last time you saw it. Town council recommended some minor changes, including kind of wiping out on that last section what the expenses could be used for, and I know Andy and the rest of the commission felt it really important to let anybody who's applying for permits, to let them know what their fees that
Oh,
they're
this-
paying are
oh.
being used for. So we left that in, so it's pretty much not unchanged since the last version you've
So all
seen.
jokes aside, this was the housekeeping.
Housekeeping,
housekeeping.
yes.
Article number 9 is just,
Same thing. Say it.
for lack of a better word,
No, it's,
cleaning house. You know,
Hasn't changed.
public shade tree is now under the highway department versus the planning department. My title is manager versus administrator. Just clarification of the conservation fees,
There's
and that's essentially
it.
the changes in that.
Yeah.
What you won't see was the former Article 10, which was the Conservation Commission voted to shrink the setback or aura from Great Ponds from 200 feet to 100 feet. Conservation pulled that article at their last meeting on Wednesday,
okay, thank you.
wanting to have more deliberation and discussion on that article before Maytown meeting.
Good.
So, anything else for conservation?
No, it's, again, Article 9's the same as the last time you saw it. I don't know if, Andy, if you have anything to add on the aura. I think you guys just wanted to.
Yeah, we just wanted, we're gonna notify the lake associations and have a couple more public hearings about it. I think people felt, that they weren't notified properly, so we're gonna do our best in
You
making.
talking about the one that was pulled?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep,
Smart.
Cool.
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you,
Thank
have a
you
great
very
night.
much.
Thank you.
Article 10 has not changed since you saw it.
So
Carter.
just for everyone's record, if you have or haven't seen, Jen brought the latest thing of the vote from the planning board.
Minutes old.
There've been a number of emails, but I think this is a correction with the correct numbers and votes.
It is.
The votes didn't change, there was an issue with article numbers.
Yes.
Thank you, sorry.
All right, so so number 10 hasn't changed since you last saw it. So if you don't, like, kind of raise a hand, I'm just gonna run with these, okay? So,
We had a comment from one of our members who was unable to come,
sure,
so she sent me an email. Apologize for reading, but it was the question of, you buy into a retirement place, Bob brought it up here. Over 55, now you're changing the rules and saying that, you can have kids there, still have to have at least one person over 55.
Yep.
And, so the question is this a go-forward basis, or does this change what we already have? And, just.
so you don't have any, there's only one continued care retirement that is approved, that is Wedgewood Farms. This would not be retro to that project, but unless they voluntarily do that. They intend to voluntarily, because this was advertised before their approval, they intend to voluntarily comply with this bylaw so the town can count the affordable units in that project on our subsidized housing inventory. There are no other over 55s in the town of Sutton. So any over 55 would allow persons under the age of 18. So, and it's really just a gut decision. If you want an over 55 bylaw and you want to ensure that nobody under the age of 18 can be there, then you just disapprove this article, but you need to understand then at that point, there's no point in requiring affordable units in there because they can't be counted. So, that's the trade-off. So you either strike the language and understand two things, that it will be marketed as an over 55, and the second thing is that in all of our max 2-bedroom condominiums, you already have no or minimal number of individuals under the age of 18 living in our 3 2-bedroom condominium projects that have existed in town for any number of years. So the reality of condominiums at 2-bedroom size in the town of Sutton is that they just don't produce kids. And in this case, this will be marketed as an over 55, unlike the villas, unlike Woodburyville Heights, unlike Forest Edge. So you're gonna have even less kids. But it is, the reality is, when you strike this language, you can have somebody over the 18, under the age of 18, so you can't bar that. But based on what we already have and how this will be marketed, it's not likely that you will have a significant number, if any, individuals under the age of 18 based on current projects in town. So, but it's a decision you have to make.
I just have a question.
Sure.
So, you're saying we're currently not meeting the minimum affordable housing?
Absolutely not. We're supposed to be at 10%, we're at 1.5.
And what's it mean to not, what's it mean to stay at 1.5?
To stay at 1.5, it means you're completely exposed to an unfriendly 40B. So if somebody wanted to come into town and do, say, 200 apartments of any density, any design, anything they wanted, you'd have no defense. You would get 200 apartments, any density, any design, anything they want. And we do now know from our most.
Virtually any zone, too.
In any zone.
I mean,
You
they could
couldn't
come
pick.
into this center of town, or, any lot that is big enough and build, a number of apartments.
Right. So,
That's because we're less than 10, so
Less than
by,
10.
so by doing this and advertising, changing to 15% and asking people to do it, as long as we're under 10, you're still exposed to the unfriendly 40B.
right, you're still exposed. This is part of a strategy of requiring affordable houses in a myriad of housing types in Sutton and increasing the percentages in existing housing types in Sutton so that you're meeting the affordable needs in small chunks all around. You're still ultimately going to be exposed. It's trying to take little bites at it in any kind of project you have. So you don't have the affordable housing project. You have some affordable units here and there and in different housing types. Because as we all know, a 1-bedroom apartment might be great for Joe, but a 2-bedroom unit is what Sally needs. And the reality of affordable housing and trying to educate people on affordable housing, this is not Section 8 voucher housing or Section 7, whatever section it is. You need $200,000 and $205,000 for three-bedroom, single-family home, HUD affordability, you need $1,400 a month for a one-bedroom apartment to be HUD affordable. So we're trying to sprinkle those kind of units in amongst all forms of housing to try to work towards the 10% without having a block. It may work, it may not. In any case, it will help meet the needs of a variety of people who live in Sutton, who need to live in Sutton, and the different forms of housing that they need.
By having this, does it, and we're still less than 10, does it give you an argument when someone comes in
It
that
does.
we're moving in that direction to help negate a negative 40B?
It absolutely does. We've done two really good things, or one good thing, and hopefully this is number two. The first really good thing we did this year is we completed our housing needs study, which is a substantial plan, took community-wide input, and the selectmen voted to adopt the recommendations of our housing needs study. That is a huge step forward, a huge argument against an unfriendly 40B. The second thing is bylaws that were recommended, or changes recommended in that study, we're starting to roll those out, and this is one of those bylaw changes. So if the state, you have a little bit of leverage if you have an approved housing study and you're really trying to roll the bylaws out, you definitely have some leverage.
Thank you. Other questions? 11?
All right. 11 has not changed.
Question?
Yes?
When I look at 11, you went from 10 to 15%.
It's minor.
Yeah, but then the next article says 5%.
Yeah, different.
Ah,
This is different. These are different things we're talking about here, so
I
let me
know, you
explain.
got the CCRC.
Yeah,
and,
because one's affordability and one's American with Disabilities Act.
Aha.
So one is just affordability,
Yeah.
and the other one is if you're disabled. If you're in a wheelchair, if you're handicapped in some way, that's what Article 12 addresses. It is not about affordability at all.
You know, the Article number 11, going to 15% on a 90-unit development is roughly 2 or 3 units.
Yeah.
It's not a huge change.
It's not a huge change, but 10, we're treading water, we're just holding our ground when we require 10%, so we were just trying to gain ground, but not go to 25%, which is a 40B project. So we're trying to get in the middle there somewhere.
Thank you. 12?
12, this is the one where we changed some of the language. I told you there were 2 articles where we were gonna do this. So, we had a full consultation with a man named Mike Kennedy. He works for the Center for Living in Worcester. He is an ADA advocate. He reviews projects with ADA accessibility. And I had a great conversation with him based on a recommendation from my chairman who works with him. And we reduced the required minimum of 5% of units would have to be fully accessible. Now, that was not just based on my conversation with him, it was based on conversations with local builders. You'll recall this percentage was at 25%. And they basically said, you need to understand that the ADA code, it's this much stuff that has to be changed in a unit. So you're working on making a project unaffordable when you really have to work in a quarter of the units, have to include all of those things. So we reduced this to 5, not based on the recommendation of the builders, but based on the recommendation of Mike Kennedy, who basically said when you see a 40B project, only 5% has to be ADA accessible. The rest, the 95%, has to consider adaptability. An example of that is when you build a house and you have a bathroom, you put blocking in the wall between the studs so that if somebody, like literally a block of 2x4, so if somebody needs a handhold, they can screw right into it. They don't have to pull down the shower wall, put in the blocking, and then screw into it. That's called adaptability. So only 95 units have to be incorporating adaptable elements. So he said, 5% is great, because then you have at least 5% that are fully accessible, and you're not discouraging the housing form, so you're kind of going backwards. And then this list right here are the things he said that were really key in terms of promoting ADA and accessibility in continued care, which is really intended to be, we're retired and then we're aging from there. So, and he agreed that if you don't include these kind of 5 basic things, you're really just talking about regular condos, so why even do it? So that included the first floor master, I count number 2 as 2, sorry. The first floor full bath which I hadn't even thought of, because I just said, you know, everybody has that half bath on the first floor. He said, no, you need the full bath on the first floor with a 60-inch radius clear floor space. And he said it's more than just manipulating like a wheelchair or a walker if you've had your knee replaced or whatever. It's the privacy. It's being able to get into a bathroom and close a door behind you. It's kind of basic decency kind of stuff. Minimum 36 interior and exterior doors, and I talked to builders about that, and they agreed with him that the two of the three builders I talked to said, we buy doors in bulk. 32, 36, we buy them in bulk, so not a big deal. And then at least one ground level entry. He actually asked me to consult with the building commissioner, which I did, to make sure you could do a completely level, like roll from your garage into your house, roll from your front door into your house. Building commissioner said that is available per code. At most, he said, even if you could do a 6-inch, that's simply easily ramped. A 6-inch lip can be ramped like that.
Sarah has a question here.
So I'm wondering why, well, for two questions. First, what the benefit to the town is in doing this in terms of any financial gain or some restriction, and then why these weren't contemplated originally. So it sounds like these bylaws have already existed, so why the change at this point?
Right. So there is only a financial gain to the town in terms of being able to attract, I shouldn't say attract, but attract and retain existing residents within our town. So there's really not a financial gain, it's more of a social gain. So you have aging individuals within the community who want to stay here. So you want to make sure you have those forms of housing that they need. So we're trying to address what we've heard. Often you see in Sutton, in the 20 years I've been here, we change our zoning bylaws every single year. And we change them every single year because as we start to apply a bylaw, we see what's missing. We see what's broken, what's not quite right. So when we adopted the CCRC, these things were missing. And as we started to apply it, particularly most recently with Wedgwood Farms, we had people at hearings or people calling saying, I love this, but they don't have to do a first floor master. And that's critical as I age. They don't have to have one level entry. What happens if my knee blows out? What happens if I end up in a wheelchair? So these things came out of the actual application of the bylaw, which happens constantly. Our retreat lot bylaw has changed 3 times as we've applied it. Our common drive bylaw has changed twice. So the changes, the why they weren't there originally is because this bylaw is 10 pages and you just can't think of everything. You wish you had that 360 view, but until you start to actually start through a review process and talk to people, you just don't see all the things that are missing. And what
think it's gonna restrict any builders from wanting to come into the community to have to take on all these extra costs for building?
No, actually, one of the things we always do and what we did when we originally enacted this bylaw is in Sutton, my belief from a planner's perspective is why would we do any bylaw if it's not economical to build? Why would we ever do that? It's just more paper for nothing. So in the process, every time we change a bylaw, and particularly this one, as I noted a little earlier, we reach out to the actual, not just a builder, builders that build in this community and say, hey, this is what we're proposing for changes, tell me what you think. And so when this said 25% have to be ADA accessible, the builders I reached out to said, oof, you don't understand, the list is this long of revisions to a building. And then when I talked to Mike Kennedy, the ADA advocate, he said they're right, and you know what? Why would you ever require a percentage higher than you'd have to do in a 40B development? That's crazy. So no, we've reached out to actual Sutton builders and had that discussion to make sure, again, that we're not changing a bylaw so nobody's gonna use it. Because if nobody uses it, it's no use to anyone. It's just a waste of paper.
Do these pertain to a minimum number of units? I mean, if it's a duplex? I mean,
This second list, the first floor master, the full bath, the minimum 36, and the one ground level entrance apply to every single unit in a CCRC. They need those 4 elements. Every unit in a continued care retirement unit needs those 4 elements. And that's what we talk to builders about, and that's what we talk to our ADA advocate about.
So I apologize, so my confusion comes from this, is that, assuming I could build a duplex on my street here, and I don't wanna call it
Yeah, you couldn't. Yeah.
I would have, so if I built a multifamily, I would have to have
No.
this?
No. Continued care retirement bylaw is a particular type of
Right.
special permit project only allowed on, I believe it's 25 acres plus. So duplex, different animal.
Okay.
Doesn't
That's what I
have
was
to
saying.
meet
So
anything.
these are large
This
units
is-
that we're doing.
yeah.
This is a,
This is a minimum 25, or I forget what the minimum acreage is, but this is a particular kind of project that is specifically for people aged 55 and up. And it's got a minimum acreage, a minimum density. It might be only, this one might be as low as 5 acres, but it's
Nick?
it's
you have
not
a
your
question?
standard duplex.
Is this 60-inch radius the correct words?
That
That's
is,
a 10-foot wide opening.
no, 60 inch,
That's
it's,
larger than a flat-out striker bed in a hospital.
no, 60 inch, that's 5 feet, 5 times 12.
Radius.
Oh,
So
I'm
that's-
sorry, you're right, it should be diameter. That's absolute, thank you, Nick. It's 60-inch diameter. Diameter. I will make that change.
I just had a question
It's a
about
5-foot diameter, thank you.
the prices of these units. Do we know how much, like size-wise, or how much these units might cost? And if you go back to the other article, I think it's 11. If we're talking about, if we're trying to hit the 10% for 40B, how much do we think these condos are gonna cost?
Well, 40B is a formula.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm only talking about that. Yeah, I don't wanna confuse the different articles, but
Okay.
how much do we think these type of condos are gonna cost?
Well, we know from the Wedgwood Farm development, they had 3 different models and 3 different prices. They had a 1-bedroom, 1-car garage, which was $260 to $280. They had a 2-car garage, 1-bedroom, that was $350-ish. And they had a 2-car, 2-bedroom, that was $415. So we know that from their filing, that that's what they were gonna sell those at. And the affordable units are capped right now, it changes over time, but they are capped right now to about 205,000.
Okay,
So,
that answers my question.
okay,
Other questions on number 12? Thanks, Jen. 13?
it's the same as you last saw it.
Can you just give a real quick, not lengthy, real quick synopsis of this
We just
article?
added a sentence to this definition to explain how the board currently, what the board considers to be a principal use. It's not just the building, it's the parking that's required for the building. You can't have a use unless you also have the parking that's required for it. Why it's important is, you'll find in several bylaws, the principal use needs to maintain those setbacks that are required. The 50-foot setback, the 20-foot side setback, the setback from a district line, a zoning district line, that's why this is important. So it's just putting in writing the practice the board has had in place for many years.
14?
14 is the same, that's just changing the office light industrial district that has existed in South Sutton for 30 years to a different name, multi-town mixed commerce. And as you'll see below in the use table, the major change there is reinstituting just a regular warehouse distribution. So that's warehouse and distribution where the only office is the logistics office, as opposed to the sales office and the management office like IBA has or Atlas Box has. So it's putting that use back in and actually taking out a bunch of smaller uses, because the original intent for this district was to really take advantage of that transportation network that's available down in South Sutton, fairly unfettered, not at capacity, and have some larger businesses, some larger industry, office, even group retail that could take advantage of those exits down there and really create larger scale industry and job creators down there.
So one of the things we eliminated is cemeteries. You know, it's a lot of land that'll be open, but we want this for jobs and
Right.
businesses, not for.
Jobs and businesses.
Yeah.
Right. And we are encouraged to kind of,
Not for final resting place.
Right.
no,
There's lawn mowing, there's,
Yeah.
come on.
yeah. And we are encouraged to relook at that use table by our abutting towns that would adopt similar bylaws to these.
I know last time you talked about, they were in the works as well. Do we have
Yeah.
any status update on where the? number of
Uxbridge's
towns stand?
annual town meeting is the day after ours, and they'll be proceeding with an even more, a very different, it looks like this in terms of the use table, but it's a wholesale change down in Uxbridge from agricultural to multi-town mixed commerce. But they fully expect it to be adopted. The planning board has supported it from moment one, 100% unanimously. So, and frankly, Douglas already has zoning that will encourage these kind of uses.
So now the three towns
Well, a very.
blend well enough that,
Yeah.
to attract some, hopefully attract some businesses?
Right, Northbridge, Douglas, and Sutton already blended, because we did the four-town study years ago.
Yeah.
But Uxbridge had kind of been holding out. Now they're in 100%.
All right, good.
So,
So 15,
15 is just adding the name of the district to the table, which is required when you create a new district.
wait a minute. What was 15 before? 17. That was 17, so you've added,
So the 14 on the new warrant,
hold
14,
on, just hold on a second.
okay.
When we discussed this and it was 17 before,
No, I think it was 16 before, wasn't it?
no, it was 17 before.
Okay.
It was,
It's
because
saying
we pulled two
Douglas
articles.
and Uxbridge.
We
So
pulled
now it's
the
all three, right?
Well,
LED and the 200-foot.
It's hard for me to go
We did
back and,
away-
you're right, it was absolutely 17. I have that in front of me.
so before, we just had a full name, and now we have a short name, but we've removed MTMC.
Now, what I
Second
have from
page.
before was the same.
Oh, it's on there, oh, you just added a whole bunch more, I'm sorry.
We just showed the whole table.
Oh,
Before, it just had the name and the thing.
Okay, all the
yeah.
same.
Yeah, the
Thank
whole
you.
table is
Yeah.
there, shown.
16,
16 is the meat of it, what uses are allowed and not allowed in this district, and this is the one where I told you we would probably make some changes. So now if you go down the office light industrial column and the MTMC column,
right?
you'll see more deletions, more uses missing from the MTMC. And again, that's to encourage uses that are in accordance with the original intent of the office light industrial in South Sutton. Bigger buildings, bigger job producers, bigger uses, because we have a much more adequate transportation system there without the light controls that we have in Northeast Sutton. You'll also see one or two uses that have been changed, like business and professional office, that have been changed to it from a special permit to a permitted use.
17,
Number 17 is identical to the last one you saw, so just the lot size, frontage, and setbacks in the new district. You just match the OLI, there's no reason not to.
questions? 18,
18 is the same except for number 9. Number 9, the proponent that asked us to consider this wanted to reduce the setback from the zoning district line with residential from 100 feet down to 50 feet. We heard testimony at the last planning board meeting from residents who live in the area, and they pointed out correctly that the zoning lines in this area start in the middle of the roadway right-of-ways. Lackey Dam Road is a 60-foot right-of-way per the research done by Nick Nunemacher, and is a 2-rod or a 33-foot road right-of-way on Oakhurst Road. So on Lackey Dam, for instance, 30 feet of the buffer is in the roadway where you can't plant trees, you can't do a berm. So the board agreed that 50 feet wasn't appropriate because then you only have 20 feet left, really, on private property to do a buffer. That's not appropriate, especially where you're looking for a height increase. So the board maintained the 100-foot setback. So number 9, the 50-foot reduction has been removed from, and we are maintaining a 100-foot setback to zoning district boundaries in this zone. So otherwise, it's the same as the last time you saw it.
questions? 19,
I got a question,
yes, Nick, I'm sorry.
or rather a statement again. Number 2. As I said before, putting a building across the town line presents a problem for each one of the town's assessors in dealing with this. It is a problem. And I really wish that this would not happen. In my mind, it's better off to move the town line than to split a building with a town line.
I'm not gonna speak for you, but the last time you said that anyone who wanted to do that there would be, some statement of agreement, prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Yeah, I mean, that would be,
Does that answer the question, Nick?
No, because it's the Board of Assessors that decides. And in the situation that we had recently, we inquired of the Department of Revenue, what do you do? And they said, you will assess the building in your property without, in your town, I mean, without doing an agreement with another town. So in this particular case, we assessed the whole building, and I decided how much of it was in one town, and we split it by 50%. That value, or we took 50% of what I calculated. I'm not sure what the other town did. But if that person, and this could be a very large corporation arguing the situation, it could be substantially different from one town to another.
right, and how I responded to you is, you have a decision to make. I am not an assessing expert, but I'm more optimistic that we can work out those issues, and the alternative is you forego development in this area, because if you look at the lot lines and you look at the configurations, there is very little chance you will get any substantial development in this area without being able to sit a building on a town line. So it's a choice.
And, you know, we have very good relationships with all abutting towns. The managers and I meet on a quarterly basis, have lunch, we talk through these different issues. I don't know about the Board of Assessors, but they seem like a pretty reasonable group on all three towns. You know, it's challenging or complicated. It's challenging, but we'll get there. Nick just gave you an example of how it worked out in the past. But I don't want to say no to this and exclude potential large corporations from locating in a perfect area which has easy access to the highway and brings a number of jobs and new growth into the town of Sutton. It's revenue, and I think we can work out the issues that will exist when a property crosses town lines. There will certainly be issues, but I'm confident we can work those issues out.
Questions, Rain? Thank you. 19?
19 is the same, other than some language we added at the request of the fire department. The fire department just asked us to add this language. They were emphatic that they can protect any building of any height, pretty much, or I think the email said 260 feet of height. But they just need to know they can put in some standpipes. And then my board added this last sentence in the little double asterisk. Additionally, the applicant shall demonstrate and provide sufficient mitigation of visual impact along the residential zoning district boundary during the site plan review application process. So they were really listening to the concerns of the abutters when they left in place the 100-foot setback, and they said, you know what? You can go up to 60 feet because you're looking at warehouse distribution with significant racking systems. But we want right in the bylaw that we're gonna consider the visual impact to be a very important thing for any applicant to be addressing. So we've addressed the fire department requested language here, and they did not request a reduction in the 60-foot height, just the addition of the language and the visual impact. So.
Questions? 20?
20 is the same as the last time you saw that.
Twenty-one?
21, town council did some little kind of technical adjustments to this, but it's pretty much nearly identical to the last time you saw it. They just changed some law chapter citations from C period to the word chapter and things like that.
So why do we need this bylaw?
Yeah, so stormwater management, per your last meeting, this bylaw is required to meet the town's obligations with respect to their MS4 permit, the municipal stormwater management permit. The other thing this bylaw does functionally is it bridges a gap that is existing right now. Right now, if you have land development, disturbance of land that's within conservation jurisdiction, so 100 feet of a wetland, 200 feet of a riverway, the conservation gets to review what you're doing and make sure you're not adversely impacting a resource area or an abutter. If you are coming in under site plan review with the planning board or any special permit, even if you're not within a resource area, we're reviewing that. The planning board is reviewing that and making sure you're not doing anything detrimental. There are a ton of sites in town that you can clear cut, that you can disturb land, that are not within a resource area, where you can be doing something on your land and you will adversely affect adjacent roadways, your abutters, because there's no review process for that. So this bylaw not only meets our obligations under the MS4 permit, but it ensures that if you're disturbing anything over 2,500 square feet of land, so you're clear cutting, or just moving land around even on your own lot, not off your lot, that you have to review that with the Stormwater Authority, who we're proposing to be the building commissioner, and he is making a call based on the plans you've brought in, whether you get an administrative approval, which is just him going, you know what, your parcel's flat, it's no big deal, you're good to go, or whether he's saying, whoa, you're on a 20% slope, yeah, you're not next to a resource area, but when you start clearing this, you could swamp your neighbor with stormwater, blah, 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 and then he can require under this bylaw and the regulations that are crafted under this bylaw that you file a stormwater management plan, that it be reviewed by him or the town's consulting engineer. So we're plugging a hole that exists right now that frankly we've had some issues with over the last year, with people kind of doing what they want on their own land without thinking about what they're going to do to their neighbor, to the adjacent roadway, to resources areas almost 300 and 400 feet away. So it's twofold, meets our obligations under MS4, and plugs a hole that we've had some big issues with over the last year.
If we don't do this, in my opinion, we'll be forced to do it at some point in time. It'll be a consent decree that orders the town to implement this.
Great.
And the last one?
So there's 22 and 23, 21, 22, right? No, 22 just references this bylaw under site plan review. So again, we already do stormwater management under site plan review, but the MS4 permit and guidance says, please specifically list compliance with this regulation under site plan review. So, no big deal, we're already doing it, but let's reference it specifically under site plan review. So that's what that does.
All righty.
Alrighty?
Are there any other comments from anyone else who is here who would like to speak? Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing, and then hold the meeting open so that we can vote.
Motion, we close the public hearing?
Second.
Those in favor? It's unanimous. So, thank you very much, Jen.
You're
You
very
are
welcome.
Very good. Even though you did send me an email offering not to show up.
But I showed up when you said show up, right?
I paid no attention to your pleas. She did send me an email saying, can you remember everything that I said? Is it okay if I don't come?
I just wanna bore you with.
Yeah.
You said, what's your name?
Yeah, no. I said a meeting without you is like no meeting. Okay, here we go. So now we need to, for our new members now, what we need to do is we'll take each of them, and we'll have discussion, and we'll have a motion, a second, and discussion, and we'll vote on them, and we'll record that. We'll put our recommendation in writing, and then we'll send it off to the town clerk, who will include it onto the warrant. Okay, Okay, so if you've attended a town meeting and you wonder where all those words came from, that's where it is. So I'm gonna help, Sarah write these and do them, all right? So you're ready? Okay, so,
Motion to accept Article 1 as written.
Second.
all, discussion? All those in favor of Article 1?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, thank you. Article 2,
Motion to approve Article 2 as written.
Second.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Number 3, that's the, for the OPEB there, OPED, be about 235,000.
Yep.
Motion to accept Article 3 as written.
Second.
Discussion?
Good job.
Yeah, this,
That number may go up to
Yeah,
closer
well,
to 300.
we're not gonna hold you to it,
Yeah,
Jim, you
no,
know,
no,
we're not
just-
gonna hold you to
just
it, but
wanna-
if you can get it to 400, we really
No, no,
like
no.
you.
Or.
Anyway, we need to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 6-0, all right. Number 4, which is, there's one bill, it's a transfer station for $1,125, for a bill from last March.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Once again, unanimous. Number 6, this was the study to determine what the issues are at Stevens Pond Dam. It'd be approximately $16,500.
You said 6, but it's 5.
5, I'm sorry, 5. I apologize.
Motion to accept Article 5 as written.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Article 6, which is approximately $25,000. This is to pay the bills for the engineering and the permits for the state on there, and it's to maintain its now existing condition. This is the Woodbury Pond Dam.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Number 7 is the sewer project, and the funds for this will come from connection fees, not retained earnings, as I misspoke. Motion?
Motion to approve Article 7.
Second.
Discussion? I think this is well needed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. Number 8, which is basically cleaning up some language here. Fees, it's actually, apparently they don't really have it in writing exactly what they do, so this better spells it out. This is from the Conservation Commission. Motion?
Motion to accept Article 8 as written.
Second.
This-
Three people second.
That's okay, you don't have to write down, just as long as it's seconded.
Everyone's really
Discussion?
excited about
Just
that.
create a name.
Everyone was excited about it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. I'm up to number 9 now.
Yeah.
Number 9 is from the selectmen. This is some language cleanup here. Things like the changing town administrator to town manager,
Yeah.
highway department. So this is basically,
House cleaning.
yeah, my favorite phrase. Motion?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Second. All right. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Number 10, again, the planning board. On the continued care retirement communities definitions. Well, this is to do with the
18-year-old.
striking the 18-year-old requirement. Motion?
Motion to accept Article 10.
Second.
Discussion?
So we can cut over now to, we have the planning board's notes if we wanna look at. Their recommendation, looks like they voted unanimous to approve as
Yes, they
written.
did.
Yeah, they were 5-0 in their recommendation. Other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. Number 11, this is to change from the 10% to the 15%, so it help in the issues surrounding that. Again, the planning board voted 5-0 on this one. So a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second. Discussion on Article 11?
So, like at the spirit and intent, I'm ultimately supportive of this. I just don't know how much the land that we have that we can develop to get us out of this, get us closer to the percentage of adherence. But it appears to be in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, my own comments is we've heard the 2 nights that we've done this, is that it's a minor impact on any units that's being done. My thing is, and that was my question is that, in the event that they come in and with the, adverse 40B, I believe that was the right phrase there, does this give you some argument that, look, we're trying to get there, so, so that you don't come in and, I guess, build something on the common here that we wouldn't want in town, so anyway. Any other comments or discussion? All right, Article 11, we have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Article 12, again, I would notice they changed the 60 from radius to diameter on here, and again, this is the continuing care retirement communities, so that it's conforms with the issues for ADA. So I'll take a motion.
Motion to accept Article 12 as written.
Second.
And on number 12, it was 5-0 from the planning board, so discussion?
Yeah, my only comment on this would be that, 55 is getting younger and younger, and some of those 55-year-olds might not mind having a second floor master, 55 to 65-year-olds. It just felt a little restrictive to go 100% of the units having to have, all of these capacities here. Just the cost to the builders, and if it would restrict anyone from coming in town to adhere to all these. That would be my only concern with this one.
Well, a question here, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, and Jen is still here, says a minimum of 5% of the units.
No, I think Jen, I don't know if we can ask her thought, but I think the first first paragraph is 5%, and then the second items are 100% of all the units have to have those items.
Sarah is absolutely right. We already have a condominium bylaw, which is different from this, so if you want a second floor master or some other form of housing, you can get that under all of the other forms of housing available in Sutton. If the planning board's position was under continued care retirement, which is meant for the younger and younger 55, but people being able to stay there as they age longer, that this requires 100% of units to have that first floor master, the first floor full bath, the 36-inch doors, and 1 ground level entry. So if you don't want that, if you want the second floor master, you have every other form of housing in Sutton you can build under. Standard condos, duplexes, single-family homes, whatever else you want.
Did the current units coming in already meet all of these, the
They did.
wedge?
Actually, they met the first floor master and the first floor full bath. Not all of them had a full 60-inch diameter, but they were close. All of them had 36-inch exterior doors. Some had 36-inch interior, and all of them had 6-inch or less ground entries on all entrances, not just one. 6-inch or less.
That's all the questions I had there, or comments.
All right, so we have a motion, a second, Article 12. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Move it to post.
Opposed? All right, 5-1. So when we write this one, we'll want to make a comment as to why the
Absolutely.
dissenting vote,
Yep.
okay? Article 13. Again, this is, the planning board voted 5-0 on this, but this is to put into wording what their practices have been. So I'll take a motion on 13.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. A discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. 14, which is basically a name change. Again,
Yeah.
it was 500 from the planning board. Take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. 15. Truly some, the planning board on 15 again was 500. And they're creating a new zoning district, so they need to list what it is, and that's what it is on the next page there, the MTMC.
Motion.
Motion?
Motion to approve Article 15.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. 16. And this updates our list, our list, and adds the MTMC district in there too. So I'll take a motion on 16.
Motion to accept Article 16.
Second.
Again, the planning board was 500, so discussion. All those in favor of 16?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody, 6-0. Article 17 outlines the new district, and gives the table of area regulations here. And again, 500 from the planning board. A motion for 17.
Motion to accept Article 17.
Second.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor of 17?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. 18.
Motion.
Again, 500, planning board. Motion?
Motion to accept Article 18.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Oh.
Alright.
So this is the article that Nick had.
Nick had an
commented
issue with number
Yeah.
2 here.
And so I understand the spirit of his issue, but I also tend to agree with the town administrator in that we don't wanna restrict the use, and we wanna encourage the use of that land, especially given its proximity to transportation, et cetera, so.
Yeah, I concur, and I defer to the lawyers in the room here, but I find it hard to believe that you can't come up with an agreement before you build that's not binding, but anyway. I guess nothing's binding, right? And there's no lawyers in the room. All those in favor of Article 18?
Aye.
6-0. No real lawyers, right? I play one on TV. 19, again, this was a 5-0 by the planning board, and there were some minor changes in there to conform with some issues from the fire department.
Yep, the sand pipes.
Yep, and so they all liked it, so I'll take a motion on 19.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of 19?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0. 20, again, 5-0 from the planning board.
Motion to
And this
approve.
was okay.
It's all the
Give me a
same.
second.
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 Discussion? In favor?
Aye.
6-0. 21 is the stormwater management bylaw, which the town needs to meet the obligations of stormwater management. And the planning board again voted 5-0. Motion?
Motion to accept 21.
All those in favor, oh, discussion?
Think yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I can hear the trees crying.
Surprised nobody got a paper cut.
A motion to get, you know.
Well, the answer would be to get us
iPads for the
all
committee.
laptops.
Yeah, Jim, can we get laptops and better chairs?
But these are the better chairs.
Oh, these are the better chairs,
These are
I'm
better
sorry.
chairs.
We'll see about.
I'm trying
Then
to-
we could get the emails right away.
I'm trying to get fired. All right, Article 22. Again, 500 from the planning board, a motion on 22.
Motion to accept 22.
Second.
article.
Discussion? All those in favor of
Aye.
22?
Aye.
6-0. So Article 23 is the, for the recreational facility there, which we have we've received a grant for $100,000. There's a group trying to, attempting to raise some money. They've raised some, but the total to the town, if they raise nothing, would be $130,000, which is the maximum. We have to approve the 230 in order to get the 100, which would offset it some. Any difference from non-raised would come from free cash. So, that makes sense to everybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
motion to accept.
All right, so give a second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of Article 23?
Aye.
Aye.
6-0.
Aye.
Hey, thank you everyone for coming, I really appreciate it. We will get these put together and send them out. For your information, I won't be at the town meeting, I'm out of town. And so the good vice chair here has agreed to show up and read. And if he doesn't show up, Bob has agreed to show up and read. But we will have someone there. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, I appreciate
Have a
you
good
being
trip.
here.